Hey guys! So today's video is going to be pretty serious. I wanted to put out just kind of a disclaimer, trigger warning at the beginning. I'm going to be talking about some pretty heavy stuff. I'm going to be talking about my sexual assault and my experience and that whole story. So if you're going through something like that and you don't think that you can really handle listening, I completely understand. I just wanted to give you a warning ahead of time. If your family, maybe you don't want to listen to this because, you know, it's not a happy story. So I just thought I'd give you guys that warning before I begin, but I'm hoping that this video will maybe help someone. Because maybe if I had seen a video like this, then this wouldn't have happened to me. So continue watching if you want. If not, I get it. Okay, so let's get into this. If you see me look down, I do have some notes that I wrote just because I want to make sure that I don't miss some really important parts that I want to touch on. Just because I'm going to be a little scatterbrained. You can hear that I'm kind of anxious and out of breath. Just because I haven't gone there in a really long time mentally. So rehashing things can definitely be difficult and bring up a lot of emotions and stuff, but I know that this video will help someone, and I know that it might even just help me. So I guess I'll just start. I was 15 years old, and my mom and I had always been involved in church. We had always loved going to church. I was in the church choir growing up. We had always loved it. And we moved when I was 11 years old, and we just never found a church at our new home that we really liked. So one day on a whim, her and I were just like, you know what? We've seen this church. Let's just stop in. You know, we have nothing to lose. So we stopped in, got some information on the church, and the people were wonderful. They were so kind. You immediately felt like you knew them and that you were family, and we had really just been longing to be closer to God. We were feeling kind of distant, and we wanted to feel, you know, like we were at home again in a church. So we started attending there. The church was wonderful. They had a bunch of programs and a youth group that I started going to, and it was wonderful. And before I get into the story, I just want to preface this with saying that some of the most wonderful people I've ever met went to that church. And they know who they are, and I just want to say this is not to hurt anyone. So we started going to this church. We had been looking for a church, so we went full force. I was like, okay, let's volunteer, let's do this, let's help out with that. We were super into it. The church was wonderful. And I started going to the youth group. I met one of my lifelong best friends there. I was loving it. I volunteered for Vacation Bible School. I was meeting and thriving and seeking God. And I had thought that I had found, you know, our place where I was going to thrive with my spiritual gifts and really help people. And through this, I had obviously met the youth leaders of the group. And they were wonderful. And there was one leader in particular that was super charismatic and just the person that you wanted to be around. He was funny, he lit up the room, he was everybody's best friend, and he was great. Until he wasn't, but we'll get into that. So I had met this man at the church. He was helping lead the youth group, and he took a liking to me, and I was flattered. He was 26 at the time. I was 15. So it was more just like, oh my gosh, this older guy's like talking to me, like what is this? But it never crossed that line. We were always just in the group at church. You know, I'd be lying if I didn't say that I had a crush on him at the time. And it was just little like flirty comments, but it was never anything super inappropriate. So yeah, I was going to the youth group. The youth leader was just kind of, I had noticed that he was taking a liking to me, and I was flattered, but also like, what are you doing? Like you're a grown adult. But like I said, it was like, oh, okay, all right, maybe I'm special, maybe I'm important. And so, you know, I was feeling really lost before I had gotten to this church, and I was really seeking God or something to fill a hole in my life. So I went full force into this church, got really close with everyone, including the leader. Well, he had started to go through some really big life changes. He had told me that his parents had kicked him out, and his parents were very high up in the church. So I was sitting there like, oh my gosh, you know, these people are so hypocritical. Why, you know, they preach to love, but they don't even love their son, and they're treating him awful. Mind you, I was only getting one side of the story. And that's where his grooming really started. So he started to really just form a friendship with me. It wasn't an inappropriate friendship. It was a genuine, hey, how can I pray for you? Hey, what's going on in your life? Do you need advice? Do you want to talk about this? And it felt really good. I had been chronically ill my whole life. I was losing a lot of friends because I wasn't in school. And it was really nice to have someone. And, you know, I've always been mature beyond my years. So I thought, you know, he's older, but we're on the same wavelength. You know, I didn't feel like it was weird when we would speak because, again, it wasn't inappropriate. And he understood where I was coming from with a lot of things. So we just became friends, and that was it. And then, like I said, he went through some stuff with his family, and he would talk to me about it. And of course, you know, I'm super close with my parents, so I would tell my mom, and she was heartbroken too. So it was, you know, oh my gosh, invite him over for dinner on Sunday. You know, if he's got nowhere to go, and he's, you know, he's the nicest guy. I mean, when I tell you everybody loves him, because he was just that kind of person. And he really just started the grooming process and was telling me all of these horrible things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, this guy is the greatest, and everyone around me trusts him, and he's so godly. And, you know, he would pray in group, and I would think, oh, I want to be able to pray out loud like that someday. And I want to be able to feel like I'm bringing people closer to the Lord. And I was 15, and I was naive. That's just not a good mix. You know where the story's going when I say I was 15 and naive. So he started not only grooming me, but grooming my whole family. This wasn't just, you know, I'm believing him and I'm thinking this. And no, he was so suave that he had my whole entire family fooled. I mean, my mom was opening her home to him. My mother was, you know, we were cooking him dinner. We were, you know, helping out because we thought that this person in need, and the Lord tells us to help those in need. And that's what we thought we were doing. And we had gotten really close. And I liked him. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I was 15 years old and I was smitten because the older guy had liked me. But I never, ever went to cross that line. So we were at my friend's house, and she had left the room, and he had made a comment to me. I won't say specifically. And I was just like, you know, no, I'm waiting until I'm married. You know, I'm waiting. I think I was now 16. It had been a few months, you know, we had been friends for a while. And he was like, oh, well, you know, you don't have to if you don't want to. And I was like, no, but I want to. It's like it's a religious choice. And he's like, I really respect that. And then I felt him lowering my shorts, And I was like, what are you doing? And he started to progress, and I was like, my friend's gonna be coming back any second. And he was like, what I'm gonna do won't take long. And I'm like, what? Excuse me? Like, dude, we're friends. Like, what are you talking about? What are you doing? Mind you, this was my first ever sexual experience. I was like, what? He pinned me down, did what you will. My friend came back in the room, and I was like, I don't know if I can sleep over. I don't feel good. You know, just so confused, still confused, but was so confused as to how it went from we were all just genuinely watching a movie, like there was no funny business, to bam. So I immediately go home. I'm like, oh my gosh, my mom is gonna find out. I don't even know what just happened. I can't process what happened. So I immediately throw away my underwear because I didn't, you know, there was evidence, because I had never done anything before. My friend was like, hey, you know, what happened? I'm like, hey, sorry, I have a stomach ache, which is not unbelievable because my stomach is messed up to begin with. And so I went home, and I saw him at youth group, and he, you know, was pretty much telling me that this was God's plan. It sounds so stupid now, but I can't even explain it. I was so manipulated and in such a trance, it's not even funny. But he was telling me, you know, this is God's plan, and in biblical times, you know, Mary was only 14 years old, and I want you to be my wife. And he's telling me all these things about, you know, God defined marriage not by a court of law, but like we can be married and in a covenant between ourselves and between God. So now I'm like, okay, I went from this is my friend who leads the youth group to I'm like your wife in your brain. Like, I don't know what's happening. So I didn't say anything, just because what am I supposed to say? Like, hey mom, I went to church and bad things happened. No, I can't. I didn't want to break my own mother's heart. My mom has been through so much with her life and with me, and me being sick all my life. I wasn't about to shatter her heart again. So I continued to go to church like nothing had happened. I thought, one-time thing, you know, I thought, you know, it didn't feel like an act of God. It felt violent, which it was. But if he says, you know, that this is God's will, then, you know, I'm just gonna, you know, it's only happened once. I'm not gonna have it again. Then he started demanding that he drive me home from youth group. And, you know, he started to escalate. He started to get more protective. It started to be, why are you talking to these kids in youth group? You like them more than me? And it's like, no, I'm 16 years old and I'm making friends and talking to people. And he started to get like a totally different person. The person that I met versus the person that he became were so completely night and day. I can't even explain it. And I remember one of the other church leaders pulling him aside and saying, you know, you shouldn't be driving young girls home alone. You know, that's not a smart idea, dude. And I remember him coming out and telling me, like, listen, you need to start telling them that, like, your mom is asking me to take you home. Like, she's told me that I have to take you home. So now I'm lying to my mom saying, hey, sorry about that. I said a name that I have to edit out. So now I'm telling my mom, hey, you know, my friend's mom is going to be taking me home. And my mom has no reason not to believe me. My mom has trusted me my whole life. And then I start telling her that he's bringing me home, and she's not suspicious. There's nothing to be suspicious. There's nothing to be suspicious of. I mean, in hindsight, yeah, there is. He was like a 27-year-old man and I was 16. That's creepy AF. But at the time, he was a trusted family friend. So it wasn't weird. We were both coming from the same place. It was like, okay, that makes sense. I don't have to leave. Cool. And like I said, he started to get extremely controlling, extremely violent. He wanted me to act like his wife, his girlfriend. And I was super confused because here I am, you know, I came to this new church seeking God and seeking friends and acceptance. And now I have someone that cares about me. And in my head, I'm young, I'm disabled, I'm not in school anymore. Like, maybe this is as good as it gets, you know, and he's not a bad person. And it only happened, you know, once. So maybe, and I started to go along with it for him. And then it happened again. Because of course it happened again. Because what naive 16-year-olds don't understand is that of course it's going to happen again. Of course it is. Because that's what predators do. This time he had called me and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. And he had said, I'm coming to pick you up. And I said, no, you're not. I'm in bed. My parents are asleep. Everybody's asleep. Like, what's happening? And he had told me, if you don't come with me, I am going to kill myself. So now I'm like, oh my gosh, but I don't want to have anybody's life on my hands. You know, I don't want him to get hurt. I don't want him to feel like that. What if I don't go and then he kills himself and I have that on my conscience for the rest of my life? So now I'm just reeling. And I'm like, what do I do? So I snuck out of my house. He picked me up down the street and he brought me to the spot on the church campus that our youth group met at. It was like a separate little house on the church campus just for the youth group and stuff. So he brought me there. He informed me that he was staying there, that some of the church elders had let him stay there because he got kicked out because his family was just awful. And so he took me there and I was like, okay, what's going on? And it was pretty much like, oh, just kidding. I wanted you and I'm going to have you now. And I was like, no, listen, okay? I can't do this. I am afraid of you. You are getting me out of my house at 1 o'clock in the morning. You had already done it once and you're lucky that I haven't told anybody. Like, what are you doing? This was the most violent of his attacks. He had, you know, pinned me down. He had started to have his way with me. And TMI, but he couldn't perform. So I'm thinking, awesome. I'm thinking, great, okay, you went to rape me and now you can't, you know. Finally, God is actually like listening to me, like I don't understand. And he pulled back and he said, I'm having chest pains. I think I'm having a heart attack. I think I'm having a heart attack. And I just kept thinking, oh, thank God. Because then I get to call 911. And I get to tell them everything that's happened. I get to tell them that he's tried to rape me twice. I get to tell them that, you know, I snuck out of my house and he was going to kill himself and I was so scared and like, what's going on? I get to talk and it's going to end. And he says, no, I'm fine. He, you know, collects himself. He drops me off home, throws me on the street. I walk home the rest of the way and I don't talk to him for a while. And then my mom informs me that she has invited him over for dinner. And I'm like, ugh, I get it. We have to help people. That's what Jesus did. Yay. So he's over for dinner. We're all hanging out. And my parents went in the pool. My brother was playing video games. And he attacked me again in my very own home. And it happened a couple more times after that. It happened in a pool, and I didn't know how to get away from him because the time that it happened in my home, I said, I'm just gonna scream. I said, you do realize, like, my brother's in the other room. I'm just gonna scream. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. And he said to me, you don't understand. He said, if I'm willing to kill myself, what makes you think that I'm not willing to take out the rest of your family with me. He said, I would absolutely mass murder whoever I need to that gets in the way of us. And then I will off myself. And so I'm scared, you know, I'm getting nervous. And, you know, a couple weeks go by and now my mom is like, hey, you know, he's weird vibes. I don't think you guys should, like, you know, I don't want him over anymore. And I was like, okay. But then I can't have my mom getting in the way of it because he's already made 3 confirmed threats to me that he will kill my mother. And I know that hearing this story, you're thinking, dude, no. And I am not an easily scared person, but to this day, I 100% still believe that he definitely would have killed my family. He would have killed me and he would have killed himself. Just from the mental state that he was in, I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever. So as nonchalant as these threats may seem to you, they were viable. And, you know, I believed him. I really did. And I still do. I still believe that he would have. So I started to get sneakier because I didn't want my mom to get hurt. I started to leave little like notes and cries for help. I would go to my friend's house and show her like, oh, this is a journal he got for us to like write to each other in when we can't see each other. You know, you should read it. And I had written in there stuff about, you know, the assaults and how could you do this to me. And I wanted my friend to read it and tell somebody, and she didn't. And I was putting out little cries for help. So I didn't realize why he couldn't perform sexually one night, why he almost had the heart attack, and why he would sleep all the time. So things started unraveling. We're months ahead now, and well, like a month ahead, and my mom gets a call from one of the most incredible people at the church. And she says to my mom, hey, I was just calling to let you know that, sorry. So my mom gets a call that changed all of our lives. She's in the backyard and she's talking on the phone with one of the women at the church. And the woman at the church called to say, you know, hey, his parents actually kicked him out because he had stolen from them a ton. And I know that he's been at your home, and I just wanted to make sure that he hasn't stolen anything from you, because apparently he's been stealing a ton of stuff. And my mom's like, whoa, what? Like, no way. How could, what? So my mom finds that he has stolen my stepfather's father's ring, like a family heirloom. He had stolen a couple things. He had stolen a ring from me, a couple pairs of earrings. And so my mom confronted him, and he, of course, was like, you know, I stole once in my life, and now everybody is coming down on me and thinking that, and it's more manipulation, and it's more playing the victim, and we're freaking eating it up. And I don't know why. Like, hearing it back, it sounds so stupid, but when I tell you, he had just a way of making you believe anything that he said. Like, genuinely, I would have bet my life that he didn't take it, because he just, the way he explains things and the way that he manipulates and he pressures on things about you, and he knows your weaknesses and he uses them against you. So, you know, I went to bat for him, and I was like, he would never steal from you. How dare you accuse him of that? My mom left the room, and I was like, listen, if you stole from her, like, what is wrong with you? Like, what you're doing to me is one thing, but now, like, am I not enough that you can't just mess with my life and manipulate me? You have to also go and steal from my family. Like, what's wrong with you? And that was the last time that I saw him in person, because my mom had gotten another call, and it was the same lady, and she said, hey, my mom said, oh my gosh, like, he did steal from us. Like, this is crazy. Lady's like, yeah, I just wanted to let you know, and make sure that he didn't hurt Sam in any way. So my mom's, you know, chatting with her, whatever. She hangs up the phone. We're sitting outside, and my mom is like, oh, so-and-so called. She just, you know, we're talking about, you know, the stolen stuff, and she wanted to make sure that, like, you were okay and that he didn't hurt you. And I told her, you know, he would never. And I thought, I have to talk. I have to. At this point, I am nauseous 24/7. I am not eating. I cannot keep secrets. I have abrasions, you know, on my private parts. I am in so much pain, not only down there, but mentally and physically. And I'm a shell of myself, and I'm broken, and I'm sick all the time because I'm keeping this secret and it's eating away at me, and I keep getting hurt and I'm not telling anyone. And I saw this opportunity and I was like, okay, deep breath. It's time to talk. So my mom had said, you know, she just wanted to make sure he wasn't hurting you. And I had given her this look. And she said, what? And I was like, nothing. And I had a nudge and I was like, no, come on. You have to say something, because if you talk, it doesn't have to ever happen again. And that's what drove me, was like, I can't, because the last time that it had happened, I was just sitting there and you can't explain it, but you just feel the weight of him on top of you. And I was crying out to God in my head saying, you know, I came here seeking you. I came here seeking a better relationship with you. And look where it's gotten me. Look where I am now. Look what's happening. You know, how could I be so naive, and how could you let someone do this? One of your, you know, your children, he's doing this to me, and he's doing it, you know, in your name. And that just kept replaying. And I looked at my mom and I said, okay, you know, maybe he has hurt me. And now my mom is like, excuse me? I'm sorry, what? It all comes out. Once I started talking, I could not stop talking. So now I am screaming and crying in my backyard, hyperventilating. My stepdad comes out and he's like, what's wrong? My mom is screaming, you know, and I'll never, ever get this is the part that hurts me most, is when I had told my mom what had happened and I just saw her heart break. Like, I genuinely saw the life drain from her eyes, and she just screamed in this sheer bloody murder, blood-curdling scream throughout the whole entire neighborhood. He hurt my baby. And I thought, this is exactly what I didn't want. I didn't want to hurt my mom. By not hurting my mom, of course, I was hurting myself, but I was 16 and stupid. So my mom is screaming and crying. She calls 911 and says, you know, someone has done something to my daughter. Get over here. 911 comes. They call a female detective to assess the situation. The female detective she was amazing. It's like all of these events took place, but this is still one of the most traumatic, was actually like coming out and talking about it and having everyone react to it and be upset about it. So my stepfather is consoling me. He's consoling my mom. The detective comes and she's like, you know, we have to take you down to the Child Advocacy Center. We need to do an exam. Meanwhile, forensics is going through my house. They're taking my clothes, they're taking my bedding, they're taking, you know, because an assault had happened at the house, so they're tearing up, you know, cushions and mattresses, and it's like, what? And so I go down to the Child Advocacy Center with the detective. They take a statement, and then I go through the rape kit, the exam. And it was awful. It was absolutely awful. And I'll never forget the lady. She was looking, you know, with the thing that opens you that hurts down there. And she said, you poor baby. She said, you have just the deepest cuts. And she said, I want you to know that, you know, some of the damage can be permanent. She said, but you'll heal. You'll heal mostly. And just the way she said it, like, you poor baby. Like, I was this broken little deer on the side of the road. You know, they clipped my fingernails, they swabbed everything, they took pictures. It was just, I know that I wasn't the criminal, but I felt almost like I was getting my mugshot taken. I felt so dirty and like I was in trouble. And it was awful. So they take my statement. There is a warrant out for his arrest. I didn't realize there was already a warrant out for him because of the stealing he had done from his parents. So now there's a double warrant because of what he did to me. So the cops have me call him and set up like a sting operation and kind of get him to admit on the phone while they're recording that, you know, he knew my age. I got him to admit to some of the accounts of rape. And I got him to tell me where he was going. And the cops obviously took this information, met up with him, and arrested him. So now I'm like, where do we go from here? So we go to church that Sunday, and they're making, you know, kind of like, hey, you know, people are asking, there's rumors going around, we just want to confront it before, you know, get ahead of it. I remember getting home from the Child Advocacy Center, and like 2 days later, the news stations are knocking on my front door. And they're asking my mom for a statement. And obviously I was a minor, so I wasn't included in the report, but I don't know how they knew that it was me. They, you know, specific details had come out that it was, you know, a girl that was medically, you know, complex, that she was disabled, this and that. And it was horrible. Because now even my home isn't safe. You know, he's attacked me at my home. The news is coming to my home. I was watching TV and I see his mugshot pop up. And it's like, because I'm dealing with almost feeling guilty for putting him there. And I'll talk about hindsight. Obviously, hindsight, I don't feel that way anymore. But at the time, I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, he's a hurting person too. And I called him in and I manipulated him by saying, you know, meet me here. And the cops showed up and now I'm the liar. And so the news story came out and the church addressed it. And they had, you know, after their Sunday service, you know, everybody stay after so we can talk about things that are going on. And I was like, oh, this is great. Everybody's looking at me. Everybody knows what's happened now. It's like, I didn't even get to tell my story. The whole world knows. The whole world's looking at me like, sure he did. Like, I saw you guys together. You were friends, obviously. Like, you liked him. Like, obviously. It was consensual. So the pastor's wife is like, hey, come with me and take the kids to the playground while they have the discussion so I don't have to sit there. And I remember the pastor's wife and I were out with the kids. And she looks at me and she goes, have you repented? And I said, repented? And she said, yeah. She said, you had sex before marriage. And that is a sin. And you need to ask the Lord for forgiveness. And I was just like, lady, I've been in a battle for my life. And you're sitting here making me feel like I am in the wrong, like I'm the dirty one, like I did all of this. That's not what happened. And I just, that stuck with me, that she had said, you know, you sinned, you need to repent. And I was heartbroken. Come to find out, the elders at the church had been having meetings because they had somewhat known about what he was doing to me. And not one of those adults stepped up and tried to protect me. The church let him work for them. They never did a background check. They had known that he had been arrested and they let him work with children. So now it's all starting to come out. It's starting to come out that when he was arrested, he was caught with drugs on him. I didn't know that he was severely an addict. And that is why he couldn't sexually perform that one time. He almost had the heart attack. He was sleeping all the time. Why he was stealing from everyone. Why he would have such fluctuations in his mood. And it was all starting to make sense. And yeah, all of those adults that knew what were happening and never came and helped me. Just thanks. Appreciate it. So I go to youth group. I'm trying to pretend that nothing's happened. I'm like, hold your head high. They're going to talk about you, whatever. And we go into the youth room and all the cushions are gone. Forensics had been there. Obviously, I told them that an assault had happened there. And now everybody's like, it's because of Sam that there's no cushions. And I'm like, oh my God, this can't get worse. This is terrible. So I go home and the Child Advocacy Center calls my mom. And they say to my mom, hey, we just wanted to let you know that your daughter has chlamydia. And I have never felt so gross in my entire life. I'm not only dealing with that, but now he's given me this. And of course it's treatable and it went away, but it was just like, things just kept happening. I kept trying to move on and things just kept happening. But it worked in my favor because he started to deny everything. And obviously they matched the strain that I had to him. So there's no denying. But I felt disgusting. I felt awful about myself. I hated myself. He made bail, he got out of prison, or he got out of jail, and now we're going forward with, obviously pressing major charges. We're gonna potentially go to trial. So the state attorney pulled me aside when we had met with him and he said, listen, I'm gonna offer him probation. And I said, I'm sorry, what? He has brutally raped me multiple times and he's gonna go home? And he said, you don't understand. He said, I don't want to put you through a trial. He said, and he's going to deny that, say it was consensual. He said, we have people saying that you liked him. We have people saying that he was close to your family. He's going to try and say that this was, that you came on to him, that you wanted it. And I said, but there's hard evidence that that's not true. He said, I know that. He said, but I don't want you up on that stand. He said, he had brought up crazy stuff. He said, you made a tweet 2 weeks after one of the assaults and it was a happy tweet. They'll use that against you. And I'm like, what is happening? This man has ruined my life, ruined my family, was high on drugs the whole time he was assaulting me. And that's why he was so damn manipulative. And now I'm the one who is like, sorry, you're, really? And he said, I need you to trust me. He said, with probation, he will get out. He said, and he's on drugs and he is a manipulative narcissist. He said, he will mess up again. He said, and when he messes up, he will get the full sentence without you having to go to trial. I'm thinking, screw this state prosecutor. Like, homeboy does not want his job. He does not want to stand up for me. Like, he's taking the easy way out. He's given him probation. Like, he's ruined my entire life. And he's just like, here you go. Have fun. Go on the streets. Be careful. Don't hurt anybody else. I was livid. And the state prosecutor said, trust me. And I was like, I don't know if you read my file, but I'm having some issues with trust lately because of things that have happened. So he got out on probation. He took the plea deal of probation. Of course he would. That's a great deal. And he was out of jail. We had stopped going to the church, obviously. And I went into the darkest place I've ever been in. I did not leave my house for 6 months. I was having severe PTSD because he had promised me that anybody that had come between us would be killed. And he had promised me, he even had said, oh, I'm going to tell our kids someday, Daddy had to go to jail, but it's just because Mommy didn't understand at the time. he just kept saying, you know, like he was going to come back for me. And it was this sickening feeling. I didn't leave my house for 6 months because I would run into the people from the church that knew, or I was afraid I was going to run into him. For the better part of a year, I didn't sleep at night. I was scared to sleep at night that he would come. So I would only sleep during the day when I knew that other people at my house were awake. I would sleep from like 10 a.m. to like 4 p.m. and I was up all night. I gained probably 70 pounds, 70 to 80 pounds, and I'll insert pictures. I had gained so much weight. I was not leaving my house. I felt disgusting. I felt used. I felt stupid as hell. And I was so mad at God. I was livid at God. You know, how come nobody tells you that the devil goes to church too? How come nobody tells you that rape is not just with a knife against your back in an alley? How come nobody tells you that your rapist is not going to have a pedo stash in a creepy van? He can be charismatic and lovely and the liveliness of the room, and that people will love him, you know, and that he's someone you know. And that's the main reason for this video, is that, you know, it's not always the creepy guy at the park. It's not always the random dude. It's the people closest to us. He had me fooled. He had my family fooled. He had a whole church fooled. We're talking mass manipulation. We are talking like next level sociopath type manipulation. And I hated myself. I kept replaying in my mind, you know, the pastor's wife saying, you have to repent, you know, you sinned. And I kept thinking, what kind of God has me raped and then I gotta say, I'm so sorry? I hated God. And I hate to say that because of where I am now. But I swore to God. I told him to screw. I was done. I hated myself. I hated my life. I hated the people around me. I didn't want to live. And I also didn't want to kill myself because I didn't want to hurt my mom. So I self-destructed. I ate myself into, you know, 70 pounds of weight gain, depression. All I did was sleep. It was awful. And it was, hey guys, sorry the camera died. So healing really started for me when, you know, mind you, he's on the street. So for me, he got away with what he did. He ruined my life and nothing happened to him. And the state attorney is, you know, a douche at this point. And then, you know, months later, after my self-destructive behavior and me just absolutely hating myself, my mom gets a call that he was arrested. He now has new charges for drugs and theft, and he also has to serve the full 12 years for what he had done to me. And I remember thinking like, wow, you know, the state prosecutor, you know, he wasn't wrong. He was 100% right in what he did. He didn't put me through the trauma of a trial, and he also got me justice. And I had no idea. I had no idea that was going to happen. I didn't have any trust at that point. After he was put away, I started to somewhat move on with my life. I had lost weight. I was starting to go to therapy. But for me, I didn't heal, and it didn't click until I realized that I wasn't dirty or wrong or a sinner for that. I realized, you know, I didn't do this. I didn't put him in jail. He put him in jail. I didn't destroy his family. He destroyed his family. I didn't break my mom's heart. He did that. And I slowly started to let go of everything because I was blaming myself for every bit of this. And as the years went on, I started to realize that I was so young. I was just a baby. And I went in there like a doe-eyed baby deer, seeking God and anybody that could make me feel like he was close. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was a child. And he saw that, and he knew that, and he took advantage of that. And I know that I didn't do anything wrong, and I can say that now confidently. And there's people out there that, still say it was consensual and, my mom found out and I just changed the story. You can think whatever you want. I know at the end of the day what truly happened to me. And I know at the end of the day that God knows what truly happened. I do not hate my abuser. I hated myself. And I think that's the saddest part is I didn't put the hate on him. I hated myself more than I hated him. I don't know that what happened would have happened had he not been on drugs. I don't know. I'll never know that. I like to think that that wasn't his true self, that he was on drugs and out of his mind and desperate. And, I'm an empath, so maybe he felt comfortable with me and he felt my heart, but he went about it the wrong way. Or I don't know. In my mind, I try to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think he was a lost and broken soul. And I don't know why it was me, but I was able to handle it, so I'm glad it was me and not someone else. If you haven't spoken out about your sexual assault, I get it. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. But I go to sleep every night knowing that he is behind bars and that he can never do to anyone else what he did to me. And that has brought me so much closure, knowing that I have potentially put the end to his cycle, that I broke that I saved another woman by bringing that up, that I was honest, and I potentially have saved someone else from going through the unspeakable. And there's a lot of this story that I won't share out of protection for myself, out of the fact that I won't let my mind go there, out of the fact that I don't want to think about and feel the most violent of the things that have happened from this. But I've moved on. I used to have flashbacks and nightmares of this all day, every day. And I'm 23 now. It's been a good minute. This used to consume my life. This used to be flashbacks 24/7 and sheer terror everywhere I went. And it's not my every thought now. It's not. I go days without thinking about it now because I've genuinely healed and moved on. And I don't believe that time heals things. I believe that you heal things, that you work at things that you heal. You're the one that does the healing. Time makes things more palatable, but you're the one that has to heal and forgive. And I read my Bible, and I know that that was never God's intention when I was seeking him, because I was seeking God, and the devil knew that, and he got in the way. I read my Bible, and it doesn't tell me that I am the one that sinned. It tells me that I am the one who is loved, and that I am the one who needs to trust the Lord, and that this whole situation was not my fault. I was a child, and it took me a long time to get there. It took me a really long time to realize that God was not my enemy, that this was not God's doing. God didn't make him do these things. He had his own messed up free will that he chose to do this to me. But God is the reason that I healed. God is the reason that I'm alive today. I've had a lot of conversations with God about all of this happening, and I have to say that it's the only thing that's brought me true comfort, because I know that the only person, because even my attacker doesn't know the truth because he was on drugs. But I know that God knows the truth, and that God was there, and God knows that, you know, I tried, and that I just wanted to protect everybody in my family and myself, and God knows that I'm telling the truth. And anybody out there who wants to think that I lied or whatever the case might be, it doesn't matter, because I know what happened and God knows what happened. You know, it was hard moving on and going forward. You know, I was trying not to take what he did out on every other guy that I had ever met. And I'll make another video about, you know, loving someone after assault, because my husband is incredible and so patient, and he knows my whole story. And he has gone out of his way to make sure that I feel safe and happy and loved at all times. And he's patient because he knows that there are certain things that I struggle about. Because as much as I've healed from this, it's an ongoing process. This year I found out that I have HPV, the human papillomavirus, and I have one of the strains that causes cancer. And when I found that out, I was like, does this ever end? Does the journey ever end? I feel like I've healed and then something new comes up. And it's the gift that keeps on giving. But I'm going to be okay. You know, I live a great life now, and I get to live, and I have a beautiful home and wonderful dogs and an incredible husband, and I get to travel and heal and move on and do things and help people. I get to do this. I get to help people. And he doesn't. You know, some parts of me, you know, I think I want him to know that I don't hate him. I don't want him sitting in a cell thinking that he ruined my life, that he destroyed me, because nobody has that much power. He did not have the power to ruin the rest of my life. I took my power back. I moved on. I healed. I went through vigorous therapy. I still have nights where I struggle. I still have days that I have flashbacks, but it's not every day anymore. And I have come such a long way. And I will get biopsies every 6 months, hoping that, you know, it doesn't turn into cancer. But he doesn't have power over me. And I want him to know that I forgive him. And I hope that he has asked God for forgiveness. And that's God's deal. You know, good luck. Part of me wants to hate my abuser. And then the other part of me thinks, how messed up inside you must be to be able to do that to someone who was so innocent and just wanted to be kind. So I pity him. I do. And I'm out here and I am living my life. And I'm hoping that this long, messed up story somehow helps somebody. I want girls and guys to know that your abuser is not going to be this creepy, weird dude all the time. Sometimes they're charming and they're charismatic, and they make you feel like you're on top of the world until they don't. I want people to know that speaking out is hard. My messages are open for anyone that is trying to speak out and is scared to, because I was terrified. But it's also the most liberating, incredible thing I ever did, regardless of who believes me or not. I hope that people see this and teach their sons and daughters to do better. I hope this teaches people not to be as naive. I hope this teaches anyone anything. I want someone to get something out of this. I don't want this to have happened and have no greater impact on the world than just hurt and pain. I'm okay. And I viewed myself as a victim for a really long time. And I'm not a victim anymore. Now I'm a survivor, and I can say that. And if you're out there and you're struggling, please know that I believe you. I know. I've been there. And I hope that you can heal too.